Hey, cool kids. Welcome into the Cool Grandpa podcast. This week's guest is Mark Aylward. Now, Mark is a grandfather. He's had a previous experience with being a technical recruiter, and he's a career coach. We are going to get into a lot of different topics. We have a blast talking about the challenges and some of the rewards around being a project manager, working in the IT field, as well as listening to Mark's story about being a grandfather and his unique perspective on that role. Now, before we get started, I want to remind everybody to go to the Cool Grandpa website, check out my merchandise tab, and you're going to find a lot of very fun polo shirts. I've got coasters, hats, a couple of different things out there that I think the grandfather in your life would really enjoy. And heck, even buy one for yourself. Anyway, I know you're going to enjoy this conversation with Mark. And without further ado, let's jump into it. Hi, Mark. Welcome to the Cool Grandpa podcast. I'm excited to have you on. We're going to talk about grandpa stuff, and we're going to talk also some career coaching and life coaching stuff too.
Yeah, no, Greg, listen, thank you so much for having me. I'm honored to be here. I'm looking forward to this. Is one of my favorite topics.
Now, Mark, I'd love for you to introduce yourself to us a little bit, get us to know who you are, a little bit about your background, and then we're going to start talking about some grandpa stuff.
Cool. Yeah, abridged version. I've spent my entire professional career in and around the talent acquisition space, an information technology specific recruiter. And most of that first few years, I was a recruiter and then a sales rep. Then I became a manager and then I started my own company. So most of my experience has been as an owner operator. So I have that kind of holistic view of selling into that market, recruiting into that market, a little bit of technology that you kind of fall into just by talking to technical people for 35 years, and all the operational rigor that goes into starting and selling a company. So that's kind of my experiential profession. Personally, father of 3 young adult children. My youngest is my son. He's the guy that's got the grandchild. And they're all entrepreneurs, and I'd like to think making the world a better place right now. So that's my personal side, my passion on the personal side, being a dad and a grandpa.
That's awesome. And that it's interesting you're talking about being kind of an IT recruiter and some of that, because my whole background has been implementing enterprise transportation management systems.
Oh, okay.
And so I'm almost like the guy from Office Space, where it's like I talk to the developers and I talk to the customers, and you don't want them in between. So you get senior project managers like myself that get in between there to try to, speak both languages.
Yeah, I actually had a chief information officer of a large medical supply company years ago ask me whether he should select Oracle or SAP. And I said, all I can tell you is thank you for the compliment, but you don't want me answering that question.
Yeah, from a transportation side of things, they're great software, but you kind of pick your poison with some of these things where, figure on double the length of the project and probably about double the cost once you get all those requirements and all that stuff down.
It's a fascinating exercise, the whole due diligence on projects. And my experience was always this: these are technologically agnostic for the most part. These are people projects, and people just don't do risk management and change management well. They just don't do expectation settings well, and discovery scares everyone.
Oh, it does. Well, and I don't mean to get us off on this, but I'm glad talking with people in the industry that understand, where going into those kickoff meetings where it's like, hey, this customer signed this big contract, we're in here, and you've got managers that are telling you what they think the business does, and then when you get to the actual users and it's okay, show me what you're doing, and it's like, well, I go to Outlook, and then I go over to Excel, and then I've got to send this email off, and then I've got to do all this. And it's like, yeah, the manager basically said you had 3 data entry points in an application, and then that took care of what was going on. And then that's where you get into the, oh boy, this is going to be interesting.
Yeah, I got some great story for another time, obviously, but I got some great stories. Maybe we can have another conversation about that.
Absolutely. One of the things that I always love finding out is what was going on in your life. What was your reaction to finding out that you were going to be a grandfather for the first time?
Well, it was not a white picket fence story. It was a very much a surprise out of left field. My son was young, I think 17, and he got his girlfriend pregnant, and I got a call from her mom, and that they had just discovered this based on a doctor's appointment. And so it was a complete surprise, and nobody was really in a very good frame of mind. I had gone through a very contentious divorce, and I got sole custody of my kids, and my children were still struggling with the anxiety and that created in their lives, and the uncertainty that created in their lives. And he was struggling with an addiction at the time as well. So I remember being at the hospital for the birth of my grandson thinking, God, I'm going to need you on this one. We're going to need some help on this one. And you couldn't possibly say that it was bad news because it was a new life, but the conditions around it were very challenging, and a lot of unknowns. So I had this really high level of excitement and all this uncertainty of what is this going to look like? Who's mom going to be? Who's dad going to be? Who's going to raise this child? Where's he going to live? How am I going to get my son sober? And so he can attend to this. And, fast forward 9 years, he just turned 9. It's a miracle, and everything worked out just fabulously. And so we can dig into that story however you'd like, but that frames it up. It was not it was a surprise, and we weren't ready for it.
Well, I appreciate you being honest with us and telling us about that experience, because I find as much as we all love hey, the family was around for Christmas and these types of stories, the reality is a lot of our grandkids come into the world with some challenges one way or another, circumstantial or otherwise. What I'd love to know a little bit more, Mark, was just how you were able as a father to help your son work through his challenges, as well as being able to take care of and be part of your grandson's life.
Yeah, I don't want to take too much credit for that. I think he worked through most of that himself, just being available, being non-judgmental, and being loving, which I think is what being a parent is all about. The non-judgmental part, when we're trying to teach them at the same time, is a little challenging sometimes. But as you well know, with the grandchild, you get to do all the cool stuff, and then when you get tired, you get to give them back and come pick them up next week or whatever. I remained very open. I was very fortunate that his grandparents, the other grandparents, are just wonderful, loving people, and they just took such responsibility, and everything they did was out of the love for their grandson. They didn't play any politics, they didn't play any finances, they didn't play any games, or it was all so transparent that I just told them, look, I'm going to do whatever. I'm going to be around. This is my grandson. I'm going to be part of his life for sure. But I don't know what that looks like, because I don't think you guys know what that looks like yet. So let's figure it out together. And they really appreciated that approach. And that's all I knew. I just knew I could do that. I didn't know what that was going to turn into. But yeah, and I mean, to me, whether it's being a father or a grandfather, it's showing up. If you show up and you're present and intentional, and you're like listening, you're not on your phone, you're paying attention, you're telling stories, you're climbing the tree with them and whatever you can do, that takes care of most of this stuff in my experience, both with kids and with my grandson. And we have a very special relationship. I don't see him every day, but I see him pretty frequently, and we laugh and drive around in the car and climb trees and eat ice cream. And it's just classic grandson stuff. And then I think my son watching this, because I think a lot of what I've done personally and professionally has been modeling. I'm a big fan of, they'll do a lot more of what you do than what you say. That's true with employees, candidates, CIOs, grandchildren. It's true of everybody. So I took that tack, and I think my son benefited. He's made many comments to me over the years. Dad, I don't think you thought I was listening when you were talking, and I heard everything. He benefited from that. I guess my behavior was consistent.
Oh, I love that. And You're absolutely right. I think just being present, being there, and having the intention to be active is, I don't know, I'm making this up, 80%, right? It's that part of it, and then the 20% is the activities you do, what you show. But I also love the modeling part of it, because one of the things I always like to do is, when I'm in a new situation, is have people tell me or show me what good is for whatever's the circumstances.
Mm-hmm.
And sometimes we don't think kids are watching as close as they are, but they are. And they take away, if we're exhibiting some negative, bad behavior or whatever, they're thinking that's good behavior because they don't know anything else.
Yeah, yeah. I think one of the challenges that we all have, and I see this in my work all the time, is this concept of assumptions being made and expectations being cloudy or less than clear. Man, as you know, I mean, kids see everything, they hear everything. And their transparency is one of my favorite things, because all three of my children at some point in time, multiple times, have thrown a line back at me that I threw at them early on. And I'm like, hey, you were paying attention. All right. Got me. And he does the same thing. He and my son, when my son was young, they're in the back of the car in the seat or whatever, and they're singing or they're quiet or they're doing something. And all of a sudden, something will come out of his mouth and I'll be like, what are you? You're a philosopher today? Like, where did that come from? So we have a lot of fun. We have a lot of fun.
Oh, that's awesome. Is there any particular activity or anything that you do with your grandson that's especially like, hey, this is grandpa grandson activities, or is it just all good stuff?
He loves climbing trees, and I'm not a tree climber anymore. I've tried it a couple times and been reminded of my age. So that's not necessarily something we do together, but if he sees a tree, he'll go running up it. What I do with him is I saw him yesterday, and we spent a little time. I'm a big vocabulary guy. I'm a word guy. I love words. I love the language. And I was raised in a family where we weren't allowed to watch TV. We just read. And, when you didn't know what a word meant, my father and mother would say, go look it up. That's how you'll remember it. And so we valued words. So like yesterday, I said to him, do you know what gratitude is? And he goes, I think so, Grandpa. I think it's like being nice or good. And I'm like, yeah, that's close. I said, when you find yourself thinking, I want to say thank you to that person for that thing, that's when you're being grateful. And this I give them like one new word every time. And gratitude's, that's a packed word. That's not a simple word to contextualize for a 9-year-old. But he loves the challenge, and he remembers. Like the next time I'll ask him about gratitude, he'll remember, because he sees the value in that, adding that new word to his vocabulary. I suppose that's our thing. And that's kind of cool.
Hey, it'll help out on SATs, you know.
If
So
that test is still around
yeah,
by then, right?
if they're still around, yeah. But no, that's awesome, because I love that idea. And these things always change around, but sometimes it's, grandpa and grandson or granddaughter going to, the burger joint whenever they're together and
Yeah.
having a burger and a
Yep.
shake or something.
Yeah.
So
I had some of those routines with my kids. I raised my kids by myself for a long, long time after the nastiness was over contractually. And we would do bowling, and we had some events that were ours for a long period of time. But yeah, with him, I mean, the gratitude thing to me, it's just like, it's not just talking to him about the word gratitude. It's anything related to, it's like how to say thank you and why you say thank you, and how fortunate that you are to have all these things to think about in terms of gratitude. And you can contextualize around the word so it becomes an experience, right? Rather than just a word.
oh yeah, well, and I think in business and in life, those manners are kind of the what do they call it? The grease or the oil that makes society work.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, the ability to communicate is one of the biggest things missing in my experience with people making professional moves. their inability to articulate an answer to the question, who are you? People are pretty good at what do you do, but I don't care about what you do. I really want to know about who you are. And people just struggle with that. So I'm a big fan of clarity. I actually have a shirt that I just bought, Greg, because people tell me I say it all the time. What do you mean by that? And to me, I'm getting off on a little bit of a tangent. I apologize. But to me, it's like, it's the professional side of things. It's like, if we don't establish that we're both talking about the same thing, what's the point of the conversation? And if we don't make sure of that, then we're making an assumption. And it sounds maybe to most people like, well, if you're talking about, implementing software, you're talking about implementing software. Well, you know better than that. And what kind of software? What's the deadline? We got enough money? What's the manpower piece? I mean, what do you mean by that? We're implementing software. Like, tell me more, So that's kind of an interesting thing too for me.
Oh, I love it. And that did strike the chord of being in those requirements and being like, I know what an order means to me. What does an order mean to you?
Yep.
And being able, half our whiteboard was just words back and forth that everybody used so that we could keep track, so we could try to speak the same language.
Well, and you have the opportunity in those instances to make things better as well. So maybe the way we're doing it isn't the way we should do it moving forward. And let's talk about that. There's all kinds of, I can only imagine being in those groups, but yeah. It's my experience is people just want to implement. Let's start coding, or let's start connecting things or automating things. You want to talk about the user experience at all? Because this place is going to blow up if everyone's green screen turns blue on Monday morning,
Absolutely. Well, and we'll get into some other stuff, but senior management, whenever Staples came out with that easy button, everybody, senior managers just were like, well, implementing software or change management, whatever it is, we're just going to hit that easy button and it's going to be done.
Yep.
Right?
Yep. Yeah. Talk about a false expectation.
Absolutely. I do want to pivot over a little bit and talk about your career development coaching practice, because you had started some recruitment organizations, you've sold some of these things, and now you're getting into career coaching. And talk to me a little bit about how you decided to do that.
It was a function of my personal challenge to some extent, because when I made a decision early on, if I'm going to get custody of these kids, I'm going to be mom and dad, and I'm just going all in. I'm doing teacher meetings. I'm doing coach meetings. I'm traveling to Little League games and volleyball tournaments. And I'm going to sacrifice myself, the potential upside to what I can make. I'm putting that aside. I lost everything materially in the divorce, like literally everything, and started from scratch. So it was a little easier to do because I didn't really have anything. I joked early on with my brother when he complains about the stock market. I'm like, I didn't lose a dime today because I don't have a dime. But I had to be on the road. I had to be mobile. So I thought, and coincidentally, I had helped at least one of my kids by then, but maybe all three, find jobs out of school, like first out of high school, then out of college. And in going over the preparatory work that was second nature to me, they're like, oh my gosh, Dad, you got to share this with everyone else because no one else is teaching what you're teaching us right now. And they got good jobs for more money than they thought they were going to get. They negotiated raises and they all ended up starting their own companies. And I modeled that for them, So I thought, well, given that feedback and the fact that it seems like everyone I've ever talked to that is contemplating a change, whether it's an urgent change, a change thrust upon them, or just an improvement in the quality of their life or their profession or additional challenge that they're looking for, whatever. The reasons are hundredfold. The level of uncertainty there that I can alleviate and replace with confidence based on just giving them answers, whether it's the way to think about a certain thing, the way to talk about a certain thing, a lot of it's strategy. Tactics are tactics, right? I mean, you got a resume, you got a LinkedIn profile, you got to go on an interview, you got to prepare for the interview. But who do you want to be? You want to leave a mark on society? You want to leave a legacy to your family? Do you want to leave a legacy to the world? Are you doing what you think God put you on the face of the earth to be doing? Or are you just collecting a paycheck? Unfortunately, a lot of people are just collecting a paycheck, and they never get to a point where they give themselves permission to think outside of their own little box or their own little world. It's kind of like, so all of that together, Greg, I was like, well, I can really, really help people. I can get in and out probably in a couple hours. I can charge my $500 an hour so I can put some food on the table. And in 2 or 3 hours, with most people, I can change their life. And it's mostly just getting them to give themselves permission to do things and think a different way about things. Like, you're chucking resumes at online portals that they're not even humans behind those things. Why would you keep doing that if it's not working? Well, I don't know any other way. Well, all right, well, let's sit down for a couple hours. I got all kinds of other ways. So, and when you give those people those openings and their eyes get bright and the bulb goes off and they're like, oh my gosh, I can just reach out and shake someone's hand instead of going through this process over here that no one's ever going to call me back about. You can do whatever you want. Break the rules. There are no rules, And so I got on a roll and I started getting feedback from people that's just like, no, that's like I've been looking for 2 months and I got nothing. And I got a job in 2 weeks after I talked to you. And I'm like, well, it's not magic. So then I had some feedback and I'm like, okay, now it's just a function of structuring this. What does this program that I have in my head look like? And the work I'm doing now is really in the spirit of scaling, because I can help you, for instance, Craig, on a phone call like this. But then when you and I are done, I got to go find the next Greg,
Right.
and that's not difficult, but it's not scalable. And I always have to be in it. My time is what I'm charging for. And I want to scale it and stop charging just for my time, because I've created a lot of content by now that I can just hand to someone or give someone a link to and say, before we talk, before you spend money with me, here's some preparatory work for you to. And if you do this preparatory work for free, you'll find that you can do the rest of the work by yourself. But what you'll find if you come join me for a few hours is I'll get you there a lot faster. You'll be a lot more confident and it'll be a lot less frustrating. And that's worth money to some people and it's not worth money to other people. They'd rather spend their time. So I offer that kind of get out of jail thing, which makes people not feel pressured to move one way or the other, because it doesn't matter to me. I just want to help them one way or the other,
Right. Well, and I think too, that approach kind of self-selects people out, right? You get the people that are like, okay, I'm going to do the LinkedIn course. I'm going to do, some of the other things that you've got available to them. And if they come to that, do it. And then you're speaking the same language when you meet.
Yeah.
And then it's like you're adding gasoline to that fire that's starting to develop.
Yeah, and I do tell that to people, and that's a very good point you make and well articulated, because it's like you can start with me on the clock if you want, but it's going to be 20 minutes before you get anything out of it, because I got just a bunch of questions I got to ask you. And if you send me your resume, you do this LinkedIn work, and you go through this Find Your True Purpose workbook and start doing some self-reflecting and self-awareness work around who you are, then you're getting bang for your buck in minute one. So why not?
Oh yeah. Yeah. But a question I've got for you too is, what do you think, or what are some of the things that pop up in your coaching sessions around professionals that are in their 50s and 60s, in terms of what might be holding us back a little bit from taking that next leap forward to kind of finishing the career off where we want it to be?
Yeah, another great question. And it really is indicative of people our age. And I was on a conference call with about 12 people on it the other day, all in the 50 and 60-year-olds. Maybe there was some 40s in there. And they've started, it was my first time on the call. I was invited on the call. I wasn't charging anything. I was just participating. I just thought every once in a while, if I can get in front of 12 people that might be interested in what I have to say, I'm going to get a couple clients out of it more often than not. So, and I can help all 12 people with just a couple of statements. But they started going around the room, just introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about yourself. And I said to everyone, and I wasn't being snide. I said, look, this is well-meaning. This is constructive feedback. So don't take it personally because you're not alone. I don't have any idea what any of you do. And everyone just told me or thought they did. So it's like, back to my original point, like, who are you? Like, well, I'm a product manager and I've implemented 7 successful this and 4 of those. And did you save anybody any money? Did you make anybody any money? Can you tell me about a significant pain that you alleviated, got rid of, a roadblock? Tell me a story. Let me know who you are. Because if I'm going to leave this call and I'm going to go introduce you to someone, I need to trust you in order for me to do that. And I don't know enough about you to trust you. And frankly, if you can't even tell me who you are, I'm questioning whether I should right out of the gate. And I don't mean that. It's not critical. It's just an observation, and I just think, and the other thing, so people can't tell their own stories. I spend a lot of time with people telling their story because that's your whole thing. I mean, I hired as well, Greg, a lot of people in my day running my company. And I never cared where people went to school. I never cared whether they had a degree. I never did. And I think college is a waste of time for 90% of the young kids that are out there right now, with the exception of doctors and lawyers and particular types of engineers and chemists and people that need certifications and licenses to practice. Otherwise, fill up a backpack, grab $500 from your parents, go to Europe, and don't come back for a year. And then when you come back, you'll be an adult, because you're not an adult right now. And you have no idea what you're doing, and you have no idea what you want to do or who you want to be. And you're going to drop 70 grand a year for somebody else to tell you to memorize some stuff. Get on the internet. You can learn anything you want. Now, that's an over exaggeration, right? But it's true. It's true. And so that and people just don't believe that they can operate outside of the boundaries of whatever fence they've put around themselves over the course of their lifetime. And what I mean by that is, we've all had the guidance counselor or the coach or the history teacher or Uncle Bob, some adult that said to us when we were our teens or young, this is what you should do. I'm like, you don't even know me. How can you tell what I should do? Right? Like, come on. And when you're young, you listen to those people. I went to business school at the University of Notre Dame because my father thought Notre Dame would be a great idea. And my guidance counselor said I should study business. Notre Dame was great. I really had a lot of fun there. I didn't learn much because I wasn't ready to learn anything. Met a lot of really cool people, and I figured it out after a while. But yeah, people are like, well, you have to do this. You got to send a resume here. You can't say these things. You can't talk to that person before you talk to this person. I'm like, I can talk to whoever I want. That doesn't mean they're going to want to talk to me. I told somebody the other day this story, and I'll abridge it, but a good friend of mine who's the best salesman I've ever met in my life and a gazillionaire from some successes, but he started a company one time to put advertising on above the urinals in stadiums. Before, remember, they were just blank walls for a long time, and then there was newspapers people hung up. Well, he digitized and the whole thing. And so the first call he had to make was the owner of one of these NBA teams that owned the stadium. And he picked up the phone and he called the 76ers guy, Pat. Can't remember his name. This was 20 years ago, 25 years ago. And the secretary answers the phone, because we still had landlines and secretaries, whatever they call them now, I don't know. But he says, I'd like to talk to Pat so-and-so. And the lady says, well, can I tell him who's calling? And he said, yeah, this is Larry Bird. And she said, oh, Mr. Bird, I'll put you right through. And the guy answers the phone, and my buddy goes, Pat, my name is not Larry Bird. My name is Chris, and I've got a brilliant idea that I think you're going to be really interested in. I need 5 minutes of your time. And Pat goes, shoot, kid. And when I tell that story, I go, people with balls like other people with balls, right? Like, how did Pat get into that chair? Probably doing something that you're doing right now, something like it. He took a big risk at some point in time when everybody told him he shouldn't, and now he owns the Philadelphia 76ers. So, and Chris, my buddy, went on to make millions, sold the company to Paul Allen. It's a great story. And that moment, it elucidates for people. Like there's literally no boundaries. No, you have to talk to human resources. No, I don't. They don't know what they're doing, right?
Right.
With all due respect, right? They're being asked to do something that they shouldn't be being asked to do. They should be doing benefits and employee retention and policies and procedures and protecting the company from liability. Those are all valuable tasks. To add on top of that, well, go find me some critically skilled IT resources that you don't even understand the work that they do in your spare time. It's not fair, you know? And that whole system is broken. It's been broken forever.
Yeah, no, that was, you ask somebody, hey, I need somebody that has working knowledge of Python. And they think like, must be a snake handler.
Well, you know, it's funny, Greg. I've had the opportunity, as you can well imagine, to talk to a lot of leaders in the IT space because the programmers I was placing in the 80s and 90s are the CIOs and directors of development and such, you know, and when you get one of those people, man or woman, it doesn't matter, and you have their trust after, say, a couple of calls, and you can probably tell from me, I lay it right on the table. I'm not hiding anything because I don't want to have to remember what I said. I mean, it's lazy on some level, but it's just like, no, I want to get it all out as soon as possible because I want to be able to say no quickly or yes with enthusiasm, you know, and you got to say to one of these people, so how's the hiring process? What do you think about the hiring process? And off the record, man, they just won't stop talking about how terrible it is. They send me resumes. These people don't have any of the skills I'm looking for. I'm interviewing 15 people. I don't like any of them. This position's been open for 6 months. I'm like, why are you doing it that way? Well, what other way can I do it? I'm like, you spend an hour with me, maybe 2, and I ask you questions no one's ever asked you before. And when I leave that conversation, you have to make a commitment to me that if I call you, you're going to pick up the phone or you're going to call me right back. You need to be accessible to me, or you need to introduce me to someone that has the authority to make this decision. I'm cool either way, but I'm not talking to any intermediaries. I'm not talking to any go-betweens because this is like the game of telephone when there's 10 people. By the time it gets to the 10th person, it's very different than what I wanted it to be. And I'm not playing that game. And if you disappear on me, I'll disappear on you because everything I'm doing is contingent. I don't get paid until you hire somebody. So I need you to be my ally and my champion and my colleague and my partner. And recruiters don't talk like that. I had people tell me all the time, you don't sound like a recruiter. I'm like, thank you.
Yeah.
You know, so they don't like the process. Everyone's in this process that's horrible. The candidates don't like it. The managers don't like it. The executives don't like it. And everyone keeps doing it the same way, you know? So I think there's a lot of opportunity there. And I'll pass the mic back to you because I'm getting on my soapbox here. You got me going.
No, this is all good stuff because I think one of the things that grandfathers and people in general in their late 40s, 50s, that are wanting to either move, change careers, get the promotion. We've been conditioned so much in Dilbert speak that, I, synchronize logistics across multiple, whatever. Like you were saying, is like, it doesn't make any sense to a person. But if you can go, hey, I implement software or I do programming, and on average, my projects end up saving anywhere from 10 to 12% that gets added to the bottom line. And I solve problems. You don't have to do anything. Turn me loose. I'm ready to go.
Yeah. And the other thing that I would imagine that you, if you're not using this one, steal it from me, but you alluded to it, so you probably are, is this go between the business and the technology people. And that's a whole language unto itself. And the business people, they don't understand the technology, and the technology people don't understand why the business people don't understand the technology, because it's so simple for them to understand. So if they start talking without a translator, they're screwed. And if you can simplify the complex technical to a non-technical audience that has to give you the requirements and the business decisions that drive the behavior that you're looking for, you're a rare resource. And so polish that guy, right? Polish that story. And I think that's a very compelling, because, explaining complex things in simple terms is one of the signs of genius in my experience, because very few people are good at that. So if you can do that, that's might be all I talk about. Because like we said earlier, I think most of these technology implementations have nothing to do with technology.
Oh yeah, it's all people in relationships.
Yeah.
And it's navigating that through. The technical piece you'll figure it out. There's always a way around that.
Yeah, it's all people in relationships, yet I'm going to judge you based on a piece of paper that has nothing to do with your personality and your intangible skills. I can't tell any of that.
Right.
So no acronyms, no buzzwords, you go in the other pile.
That and AI went through and looked for the buzzwords and scored you to stick you in the right pile.
Now you're getting rejected there by non-humans.
Right.
Like, it's not getting better.
So Mark, walk me through a little bit. We talked when somebody's reaching out to you, they want to work with you. You've got some resources for them to check out. What follows on with that, with a typical engagement?
So I just did it this morning, and I have a calendar that's out there online, and I have the link to my calendar peppered around some of the articles I wrote, my YouTube channel, my LinkedIn profile. You can find my calendar pretty easily, but I also want people that are willing to look. I don't want people that I have to lay things out right in front of them real simply every time they need to do something, because that's not showing me any initiative, and you need initiative for my stuff to work. So you get on my calendar, it's a free 30-minute call, and I'm pretty adept at, in 30 minutes, I can find out an amazing amount of information about you, because I know what to ask. And I know what I don't need. I know what's superfluous. And people want to share superfluous stuff with me all the time. Then I tell them about my free resources, and I say, regardless of what you choose to do, engage my services at the end of this call or not, I think you'll benefit from doing this diligent work here. I know you will. And then if we engage, then I got two options for you. It's $500 for 1 hour, or it's $1,200 for 3. The reason I picked 3 is I've never needed more than 3 hours to do the work that I need to do, because most of this work is the work that you're going to do. I'm just telling you what to do, right? Which is big, right? But I can't do the work for you, right? And so do that work. And between now and then, all I ask is that you call me back next week and say, I want to engage you or I don't. So we can close that out. We can and we can come back to that in 6 months. You can call me later. It doesn't matter. You can change your mind. But closure is a very important part of my business, as it is to anybody. So let's just bring closure one way or the other. And I'd say maybe half the people I talk to sign up, and half of the people that sign up go for the 3 hours, which tells me they were listening and they heard something that they thought was pretty valuable, because in the grand scheme of things, people are paying $500 to $1,000 to $2,000 for people to rewrite their resume. I'll do that in 5 minutes with my eyes closed. I don't want you using your resume anyway, right? We'll get it done, but and the LinkedIn profile, everyone uses that incorrectly. No one uses that as a branding mechanism. It's just an online resume for most people. And most people don't even look at it. I'm like, have you looked at your LinkedIn resume in the last 6 months? No. And you're looking for work? What are you, insane? So anyway, as you can tell, I get pretty passionate about this stuff.
No,
but I think it's pretty simple.
Yeah. Well, and this is awesome, because we do get stuck from time to time, and we do need that person that's going to come alongside us and help push us a little bit, help guide us, and just get us up over that next hurdle.
I'll add to what I said, if I may, Greg. And so if you choose to engage me, this is what that looks like. We'll arrange a Zoom call probably within the week, and we'll carve out an hour, and then I will ask you to send me the work that you've done. And if you need 2 weeks to do that, we'll schedule it for 2 weeks out. Whenever the work's done, the True Purpose workbook, the LinkedIn cheat sheet, and a couple other resources, and maybe some recommendations about your resume and other things to think about. And then you come back with all that work. You send it to me before the call. And so we jumpstart that first hour. And in an hour, I will take everything that you've done and all the questions that I now have answers to, and I will begin to build a strategy with you. And I'll give you homework to do certain things. And that hour flies by. And people are taking copious notes and asking me, can you say that again? And, it's really can be engaging, and it's really enlightening to them. And when you see that, like I said earlier, it's really fun, immediate feedback. And then the second, I'll give you 2 weeks to do that work, and we'll get back together for that second hour, and we'll kind of tie everything up. How'd you do? Tell me your story again. How you doing on your story? What iteration are you on? And there's 3 versions of the story that I tell people to develop. And then other things people do based on, a lot of people don't reach out to people that they should be reaching out to. I had a guy tell me the other day, I don't like asking people for help. I'm like, get over that. I said, people love to help, but you're probably not asking them the right way. Because and people say, well, they go on LinkedIn and they're like, hey, I just got let go. I need some help. If anybody knows anybody, let me know. I'm like, what do you do? How can I help? I can't help you. You need to tell me what you do, what you like, what you don't like. There's a conversation that's missing. So yeah, that's 2 hours. And then the third hour is more strategy and updates. And then if I get into a third hour with people, they'll typically have some activity going on, like they'll have an upcoming interview, or they'll have just had an interview. And then I'll put my recruiter hat back on and say, well, let's do some feedback. Let's see how this went. Let me equip you, if this is what you want, to go get it. Because debriefing after an interview is a huge part of a recruiter's job, and most recruiters do it very poorly. And preparing someone for an interview, I can change the outcome of an interview just with preparation. So pretty magical stuff. So then we'll often get into some tactical stuff, which is kind of fun because it brings me back to my recruiting days. And I shouldn't say it, but I really feel like I've seen it all. I just can't. I haven't been surprised in a while, Greg.
Well, Mark, that's awesome. I've had you on for a little bit. Is there anything about being a grandfather, anything around career development coaching that I haven't asked you that you'd like to bring up before we wrap things up?
No, I think that I would share one last story with you. One of my best friends, one of the first guys I hired as a sales rep in my company 20 years ago, and he's been my best friend for a long time. He reached out a couple of weeks ago and asked me to help a young man that was a friend of the family that wanted to switch careers. And he said, after I talked to him for a few minutes, I just thought, you got to talk to this kid. You can help this kid. And I said, well, what do you want me to do for him? And he said, I want you to do for him what you did for me 15, 20 years ago. And I said, well, what did I do for you? And he looked at me and he said, you gave me my confidence back. And I thought, cool. I didn't know that. I didn't know. Well, and I started thinking about it. And I think because people come to me with a high level of uncertainty, if I can bring that uncertainty to clarity, confidence just starts flowing in. Because in the absence of uncertainty, you have certainty, and certainty breeds confidence. And then when you have confidence, now you can start to get courageous, and that's where the good stuff happens, is you start doing things that you were a little bit fearful of, whether it's a conversation that you could have or being a little bit more forward by reaching out to somebody. And people, once they break free of that and they gain their courage, that's when the magic starts happening. So I like that story because of the simplicity of that's what I do for people. I give them back their confidence. And as far as grandfathers are concerned, I think my best attribute as a grandfather is staying out of stuff I go when I'm invited. I don't show up unannounced. I have great respect for the people that are doing the day-to-day hard work of raising a young man. And I really think that they appreciate that, because I can come on pretty strong if I want to. And early on, I really figured out that I'm a grandpa. I'm not the dad. I'm not this. If I see that they're doing something with him that I don't approve of, I'm not going to say anything, because if I had to take care of that kid and get up at 5 o'clock in the morning for another at 60, do whatever you want, man. You got to give the kid an iPad to shut him up for 5 minutes, knock yourself out, right? So I don't stick my nose in stuff as a grandpa. I think that's a good quality for a grandfather.
Oh, absolutely. And it's a great way to make sure that you're invited back over for birthday parties and movie nights and things like that.
Yeah. 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 And I've bit my tongue a few times, but it's good. It's good. They're doing great work.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Well, Mark, thank you so much for being a guest on the Cool Grandpa podcast. I really have enjoyed this conversation. I know it's going to help a lot of us that are in that range that are looking to move up in our careers. So I appreciate that.
Yeah, I think if you just maybe in your show notes, we can stick a link to my calendar. If anybody wants to have that 30-minute conversation, no obligation, it might be very helpful for some of your people.
Oh, absolutely. I'm a horrible host. Please give us the name of your website, and then we'll be sure to put that into the show notes.
Yeah, well, we were talking earlier about the company name that I use that I really am not been branding. I'm branding my name, and I've also got my name as my domain, and it's redirected. So 7 Pillars Global is the company name. That's what I invoice through, and that's what I pay my federal taxes through and stuff like that. But Mark Aylward, MarkAylward, markaylward.com. And I just started a newsletter. I got a podcast called the Imperfect Men's Club podcast. I think your audience would very much enjoy that. It's a little off color for anybody with sensitive ears, but it's talk about transparent. And we talk about all the issues that men go through in midlife. And so there's grandfather stuff in there. There's father stuff in there. There's professional stuff in there. And we have a lot of fun. My co-host is a good friend of mine who's also a successful entrepreneur and father. Not yet a grandpa, but soon. Yeah, I mean, if you find my stuff, you're either going to like my stuff or you're not. And if you do, there's a lot of it. And I also like to make people laugh. So there's some funny stuff out there too, if you want to get a kick out of some of this stuff. I don't take myself too seriously.
Awesome. And I'll be sure to put those links into the show notes and make it easy for folks to get in contact and find you.
Yeah, Greg, thank you so much. If there's anything I can do to facilitate helping any of your audience, or, you want to do this again on a different, slightly different topic, or just talk more about the same stuff, anything I can do to help, you just let me know. It was a pleasure being on and a pleasure meeting you.
Oh, I love it. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Greg.